Live in studio for the Week 8 edition of This Week in CA Football, presented by Geico. I'm Bobby Broyles, joined by Tim McDonald. College game day from Harrisonburg stole the headline a week ago, and before we break down the rest of the action around the conference, let's begin with yet another impressive showing by JMU Nation on Saturday.
Quote the one and only Reese Davis, the JMU crowd was spectacular again. A tremendous showing again, 14,000 plus estimated by JMU in the quad alone for game day. The best part about it all, I thought the expectations, the energy, everything lived up to the hype of bringing back the show to Harrisonburg. I mean, everyone delivered, and it was just absolutely amazing to get all those things back. And I know, Bobby, you were there. I know our crew was there. I watched from home and just amazed to see the support and the value the show brought to James Madison, to Villanova, to CA football as a whole, and the challenge from Lee Fitting, David Pollock, and crew to pack the quad. It was kind of met and it was kind of embraced and accepted. And that was the greatest part of seeing that. The Dukes proved their hosting rights on the field this time around in front of 25,993 fans, the second most all time, picking up win number 300 for the program and extending the longest current Division I winning streak to 18 games. The setting, the crowd, and the day could not have been any better if you're a Duke fan, if you are the Dukes.
It was a phenomenal experience, to say the least. And who knows, maybe game day will come back again or visit a different CA football venue in the near future.
Let's hope.
Well, Tim, there were other games this past Saturday outside of the Dukes and Villanova. So give us a quick recap of the results from around the league.
In that 30-8 win over Villanova, JMU's defense was the headliner all afternoon long. 174 total yards allowed, including just 30 yards through the air. 6 sacks, 11 tackles for loss. And we can keep going. The Dukes just Nova across the midfield just one time for that lone score of the game in the fourth quarter. It did get a little bit close there, but still hard to believe that JMU had just 45 rushing yards in 30 attempts, which makes the complete team effort, the complete defensive effort, and 30 points scored even that more eye-opening at the end product. Defensive excellence carried over in Delaware, too, as the Blue Hens down William Mary 17-0. That was the first shutout for Delaware in 68 games. Both UD and the Tribe had less than 200 yards of offense, but the Hens picked off Sean Mitchell twice and also recovered a fumble in their second straight win overall. Stony Brook won the Battle of Adjustments. That was versus New Hampshire and Long Island, outscoring the Wildcats 22-0 in the second half after trailing by 8 at the break, trailed entering the fourth quarter, but kept on battling throughout. 38-24 win. Bedell, Leontine, both of them set the tone on the ground, accounting for 3 rushing touchdowns and over 200 yards combined on the ground for the Seawolves, and forced 3 turnovers. Did that defense, sacked Trevor Knight 6 times, made him attempt 58 passes, which was the major difference, in my opinion, in that game for Stony Brook. So a nice bounce-back win for the Seawolves. And Maine led by 2 points at halftime over Rhodey before scoring 28 third-quarter points, putting up 51 in a much-needed home win. CA Rookie of the Week, Chris Ferguson, tossed 5 touchdowns, 3 of which went to Jaleel Reed, and Josh Mack had a quiet, for 248 yards and a touchdown. That was a quiet afternoon for Josh Mack, but got it done on the ground. And last but not least, Richmond became the only road team last week to earn a win, forcing 6,000 turnovers en route to a 23-3 road win, capping the weekend and really closing the door on Week 7 in fitting fashion.
Yep, a lot of statement wins indeed last Saturday. Shifting our focus to Saturday now with 5 conference matchups scheduled. Action begins at 12 noon as Rhode Island stays home to welcome an unbeaten Elon team that is coming off a bye week. Rough news for the Phoenix leading into this one, Tim, as running back Malcolm Summers will be out for the season with a torn hamstring.
Kind of under the radar, out of nowhere. One of those like Friday release, Thursday releases where you look at it and then you're like, wait, what happened?
What?
The first real sign of facing adversity on an individual level, at least for the Phoenix this year. They've answered the call and then some, but at this point, Summers we know he had a broke-out fall, 755 total yards, 125 yards per game. The answer, though, I thought, the go-to guy for Elon time and time again on offense. And right now, both Braylon Cyphers and Deshaun McNair are going to be asked to step up right away. And I know he's an individual player, but the impact that he had for Elon, at least, is that large where we're talking about it as a focal point. Following a bye week and a 3-0 conference record, the latter half of Elon's schedule is going to show us everything. Starting with this first-ever trip to Rhode Island, and after last week, EU still has games at Nova, at New Hampshire to wrap up. That's just the road slate. Still have to play Towson and JMU as well. But last year, remember, the Rams headed to Phoenix, a 44-14 loss on their own home field, while Rhodey enters this one still looking for its first league win of the year. And in that loss to Maine last weekend, Rhode Island actually led that one 21-10 before the half, gave up a couple of big plays, and then all of a sudden, started the second night, 41 unanswered points from Maine, and that game was basically wrapped up. Harris and Lawson both played under center and attempted at least 18 passes, and I think we can expect to see both of them, and both of them will share reps likely this weekend. This is a prime chance right now, I think, for Elon to stay in control of its success this fall. prove that you can still move the ball on the ground, even without Summers, against a Rams defense that right now ranks last in scoring and last in rushing in CAA football. Watch for the Rams trying to get out of the gates early and often, especially knowing and understanding how good Elon's defense has played in the first half, especially in conference play. They've just limited teams to make them want to come back. And if the Phoenix have that same commitment to the run game, I'd keep an eye on that as well, that they've shown all season long. Watch for that.
In the only 2 o'clock game of the day, Towson travels to New Hampshire for the first time since 2012. Both these teams dealt with tough outings last Saturday, Tim.
The first trip north to Durham for the Tigers in quite a long time, and it's weird because the schedule flip-flops like that, but already the second-to-last home game as well for New Hampshire. So the bottom line, both of these teams could use a league win, and they can use it very quickly this Saturday. Towson redshirt freshman Tristan Harris played under center in his first career action last week in the loss to Richmond, replaced Ryan Stover early, went 15 of 28 for 153 yards, but was sacked 5 times, and Stover had 3 picks as well in that loss. And the Tigers enter right now last in scoring offense, 12 points per game, and last in rushing offense in New Hampshire. 23 completions in the first half, 24 points versus Stony Brook. On the road, you're thinking things are great, but then you can't find the answers in the second half, especially on the ground where the Cats finished with negative net rushing yards in that loss, and obviously a disappointing loss. You get an idea of where both of these teams, I think, at times want to be and where they think they can be on offense, and the yards and the stat totals at times have shown that, and you look at it, and they're averaging this many, but the capabilities of both of these teams, I think it's safe to say they've struggled to find consistency and steadiness throughout. So that's why I think it's a little bit of an intriguing game. You're not really sure what to expect on offense. And UNH, a different team, I think, when playing at home, has won 5 straight there, dating back to last season, including 3-0 this year, and can grab some much-needed confidence with a win before heading to William & Mary and JMU in back-to-back weeks coming up to end the month. Watch for the adjustments made after halftime from both the Tigers and the Wildcats. I think that's the key factor and the ultimate decider. Both of these teams in the second half have not shown up a lot of times, and I think that's going to be the key on Saturday.
Got 3:30 contests to wrap up Saturday's slate, opening with our CA football game of the week on College Sports Live when Richmond heads to Newark to take on its former coach, Danny Rocco, in Delaware. Intriguing matchup.
Plenty of folks have circled this one. I mean, rightfully so, on the schedule since the start of the year. And you wonder what type, if any, will there be emotion shown? Will there be any emotions that will bleed through and show themselves once things get real and kickoff is underway? The Spiders visit their former head coach, Danny Rocco's new home, riding a 2-game winning streak with wins over Albany and Towson, and the defense, the last 2 games, has played a little bit angry. That Richmond style of defense. 12 sacks recorded and 7 interceptions in those past 2 games. Meanwhile, the Hens beat Stony Brook and William & Mary in their last 2 games and also have some things to say on defense. Not allowed any points right now in their last 6 quarters overall since that Stony Brook contest. Outside of the personal connections, the storylines on paper, I think it could shape up to be one of those clear and simple straight-to-the-point games. The plan of attack on both sides, you know what's going to happen. You try and limit Kyle Lauletta and the number 1 passing offense in the CAA if you're Delaware, versus trying to find ways to put up points and meaningful sustaining drives against the number 2 scoring defense if you're the Spiders. I mean, right?
Yeah.
Plain and simple. Should we move on? I'll keep going. But Delaware right now allows 14 points per game and has given up 10 total touchdowns this season. The Spiders struggles with the run game. We've talked about it. It's been, we've talked about it on the Yak. We've talked about it many times. It really hasn't set them back recently, but you do bring that nightmare of weapons on the outside that the Blue Hens are going to need to have answers for. And Nasir Adderley going up against Cotrell Simpson is going to be awesome to watch.
Great matchup,
390-plus passing yards per game for Mr. Lauletta, who distributes to 3 receivers that all have 4 touchdowns and all average at least 14 yards per catch. So that's something to watch right off the bat. In a small sample size, Delaware QB J.P. Caruso is completing 40% of his passes. I mean, again, small because he's only started 1 game true. And you expect Richmond right now to stack the box in order to take away that run-first, run-heavy mentality on offense for Delaware. And it's safe to say, too, that the Richmond Spiders have not yet faced a defense with the physicality and strength of Delaware, but it's equally safe to say Delaware hasn't had to prepare for a passing attack. I know they've played some really good offenses. I know they've played Virginia Tech and James Madison already. I don't know if they've played a passing team like Richmond so far this season either.
Over on Fox College Sports Atlantic and Fox Sports Go, Albany comes off its bye week to host Maine for the Great Danes' first home game since September 23rd, Tim.
Last time out, Albany came up just shy in 2 overtimes at Richmond. Suddenly and quickly needs to respond. Back-to-back league losses right now in brutal fashion, so probably a perfect time to have a bye week. Will Brunson had one of his better games offensively of the year in that loss to the Spiders. Remember, he had 4 touchdowns, 339 yards, but the Danes right now, I think what's kind of limited them a little bit. They're 10th right now in rushing as a team, 111 yards per game. We know what that rush attack did last year, and obviously people change and things have changed. The systems have changed. Needed to be key for them. And up and down, first half versus Rhodey resulted in 28 points in the third quarter and 51 total for Maine's first CA win of the year last Saturday. I'll admit, I was a little bit harsh on Chris Ferguson and how he played, and he made me eat some crow with his 5-touchdown performance, but it also helped to have Micah Wright back returning punts. We had a 77-yard punt return for a touchdown and kicks. I mean, the ultimate difference maker that he can provide right away, too. The Black Bears are 2-3 overall and have won 2 straight in this series, including their last trip to Bob Ford Field in 2015. The Danes D is second in rushing, allowing 89 yards per game, and you can bet they know stopping Josh Mack, that's the key for victory. Hands down, plain and simple. Mack, 6.9 yards per carry and leads the league in yards per game. It's tough to say who needs this one more, who can come in and get that desperation over with. But Albany having this opportunity to clean the slate a little at home, that stands out to me. The Danes host Rhodey next week and end with Delaware, Stony Brook, New Hampshire. So it doesn't get any easier down the rest of this path.
And we wrap up Week 8 with the number 1 team in the country, JMU Dukes, taking on rival William and Mary in Williamsburg.
Dukes grabbed major headlines, and more than normal at least, for the number 1 team in the nation last week with game day in town. And I thought the most important answer the question I should say that they answered was being able to stay focused on top of that with their 30-8 win over Villanova. The Tribe enter trying to play spoiler and have dropped 3 straight league games. True freshman quarterback Sean Mitchell, and another true freshman young guy in this conference trying to prove himself, started last week in the loss at Delaware and is the 3rd different quarterback to play for the Tribe in the last few games alone. Trying to give you an idea of what they're trying to shake things up on offense. JMU faces another difficult and stingy defense. I mean, take away the 17-0 loss. William Mary held Delaware to 195 total yards, 78 passing yards, 10 first downs in that loss. Yes, they were shut out, but the defense still showed up and has shown up a lot of times this year. Brian Shore managed the game a week ago, 20 of 28, 271 yards. Reached 50 career passing touchdowns. He's just one shy of tying Vadley and Justin Riscotti's program record of 51. He should get there at some point. But as it stands currently, I think it's safe to say that William Mary can stay in it thanks to its defense and can stay in it especially early, keeping up, staying within striking distance on offense. That's another concern. That's what they have to answer. 15 points per game offensively and questions under center does not bode well against a JMU defense that arguably has been the best in the FCS so far. 2 teams that understand and appreciate the bragging rights carried with this rivalry. And JMU will have its antennas ready considering how close the Tribe played them in Harrisonburg a year ago. Remember, that was a touchdown game. Taylor Reynolds got a pick late. And how many players were on that team 2 years ago? I think that also factors in that lost in Williamsburg, including Brian Shore, who played in that game.
With 5 conference games on the docket this weekend, you can find streaming information, broadcast and stat links, and more by visiting casports.com/live scores. Also remember to check back on Friday for the CA Football Yak Podcast, our official podcast that delivers all the insights you need leading into Saturday.
That's right. The Yak premieres every Friday during the fall. It can be found by searching CAA Football on iTunes and SoundCloud, and on Twitter as well for those of you who aren't very hip digitally, if you need that. But Mike and I are back on the road this weekend in Newark for our final on-campus trip of the fall. I know it's sad. I don't want to see any tears yet, Bob. But our final on-campus trip of the fall takes place with the Blue Hens, so be sure to check us out on Instagram, on Snapchat, and Twitter for behind-the-scenes updates and probably some shenanigans as well.
I was going to say shenanigans. It's your last trip to be able to experience all the restaurants and everything.
We'll get it. Don't worry.
As always, good luck to all the teams this week. Enjoy the games, everyone.